and then he brought in David Sachs as his crypto AI czar. And it's, David's billionaire several times over, really knows what's happening in the tech industry, and he's brought in a lot of people. And then, of course, we had Elon Musk with Doge 1. I think we're now in Doge 2 without him, but it's still going on.
The Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
And welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Lots of things happening. We are in the midst of a revolution, if you haven't figured it out yet, and it is the AI revolution. But more importantly, it is the AI governmental revolution, which I have basically called Trump GPT. This is an administration where much of the work that's being done has been laid out, planned out by whatever AI Trump is using, and it's certainly not ChatGPT. That's the toned down version that us and the public get. No, his is fed with all sorts of things. Bill Walton's here with us now to talk about it. Bill, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a while. So what is going on? The AI basically program that has been laid out.
Yeah, Trump is, I worked in his transition in 2016, 17, and boy, this is night and day as he come to town ready for action. And I think part of the crew he brought with him this time that was absent last time is the tech community. And if you remember the inauguration, they had the list of people in the front row, not the list. You could see they're all on camera. Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and the guy Sanjay, whoever the name is, the guy that runs Google. They had an entire murderer's row of the top tech talent, and then he brought in David Sachs as his crypto AI czar. And it's, David's billionaire several times over, really knows what's happening in the tech industry, and he's brought in a lot of people. And then, of course, we had Elon Musk with Doge 1. I think we're now in Doge 2 without him, but it's still going on. And, the number of people he brought in who understand systems and money flows and organization structure and all the nitty gritty of how things really work, I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. And, they're going into every nook and cranny. And of course, the deep state is screaming about it. And also the people who are getting the money from programs, $100 million, maybe 10 of it makes it to the intended recipients, and the rest of it goes to the intermediaries who all live in big houses in Potomac, Maryland. But the other thing is, I want to get into it with you. He just rolled out last week is what they're calling the AI action plan. And it is comprehensive. It's not just about technology. It's about something a lot more.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So let's talk about that, because I believe their action program's already been in place from before he stepped into office. Because remember, Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2025, he's there, literally takes his hand off the Bible, picks up a pen, starts signing executive orders. Yeah. Now, from being in the loop there, you don't just create an executive order. There's got to be a memorandum. It's got to be thoroughly researched out in terms of constitutional issues, as well as statutory issues, as well as everything else, other executive orders that it's overruling or modifying. And that alone could be hundreds of hours of work. And he had several hundred of them out of the gate. The amount of time that it would have taken to create them, if it would have taken a medium-sized law firm, probably a year or two. But more importantly, they were all secret. Nobody knew that they were coming, and then he just dropped them. So to me, that was proof AI was firmly in the race here.
Well, it's a major tool, and Russ Vogt at Office of Management and Budget is using it, and a lot of the people inside the administration are, I'm sure, mapping stuff out with that. And and this blueprint, they call it an AI action plan, a blueprint for American dominance. And you're thinking, well, technology, computers, stuff like that. No, no, no. It's the whole landscape of what it is. It's you remember with Biden, they had this whole of government approach. They announced when he came in first day that all of government is going to be focused on two things mainly: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Every agency, every sub-agency, every single piece of government supposed to be infused with DEI. And the other was climate change, and everything in the government, federal government, and all related NGOs and organizations that dealt with the government, consultants, et cetera, had to be towing the line with, implicitly the Paris Accord and all the really bad ideas that, if you look at what's happened to Germany, who's followed climate change, the climate agenda, they're practically bankrupt. They've seen their GDP not rise; it's been falling, and and their gas prices, I think, are like 5 times what they are here in the United States. So it's a catastrophe. Biden, whoever, or the Biden hologram. I mean, maybe that was a technology that was operating then. Maybe Biden was Trump's using AI, and Biden people had a hologram of Joe that they out. But what he's done is that with this AI action plan, and I encourage everybody to get on and grab the PDF. It's only 24 pages. And the first thing it does is it instructs every federal agency to purge itself of the critical race theory and DEI bias and the rewarding identity over merit. And it also gets into, it's not just the government, but also the AI companies, the Google, everybody, Meta, Grok. Everybody's got an AI engine, and there are dozens of them now. The idea is they're supposed to purge themselves of the woke bias that they've had, manifestly. I mean, you can't. The classic example was, I guess, somebody asked one of these engines to draw George Washington, and they couldn't get George Washington. They couldn't get it to draw a Caucasian George Washington. They were either black, or they were Asian, or they were Indian, or they were something. And the whole thing was to promote diversity over reality. And that kind of thing. You can't do everything by executive order, but I think it's going to be permeating what's happening in this administration. That's really a good thing. He also, with this, is talking now about real energy, not green energy. And, the whole of government approach is working very differently now. He's now got the EPA and the Energy Department of Interior all working to promote a real energy policy, because if we're going to be dominant in AI, we're going to have to power it. I mean, these data centers are massive users of electricity, and sometimes as much as a medium-sized city. And so, if we want to grow that as quickly as possible, we're going to need the energy to do it. That's part of the plan. I mean, there's a lot of other things in here I can get into, but it's exciting to see somebody who understands how organizations work, how this whole of government approach, how you can't just talk about, technology. You've got to actually understand the power requirements to drive it. And this shows evidence of some really smart people involved.
Oh, for sure. Hey, they had there were 3 things they had to do. The DEI and all that other stuff, and persecute Trump. That was the 3 major
I forgot
policies.
Number 3.
Yeah, you forgot that.
Climate, DEI, and Trump.
Right. That was all they cared about. And it's madness. That was really the inmates running the asylum here.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that there's the thing we've got this problem with China. China has globalist ambitions, as we know, and President Xi is probably more aggressive about that than ever, but yet we've had 20, 30 years of doing business with China, and our technology infrastructure is completely interrelated. And China is trying to develop its artificial intelligence. I shouldn't say trying, they have. And they've come out with a pretty powerful model called DeepSeek. which at one point it eclipsed the models we had here. And I think they've got a very clever strategy. Biden administration said they're not going to be selling chips to China, the advanced chips. But what what this administration is doing is saying, look, we want to get the rest of the world using our infrastructure. They call it the stack, which involves the computers, the applications, the instructions, all the different pieces of things that go into, running an AI system. And the thinking is it's kind of like Apple and Microsoft. You've got different operating systems, and they want to get the rest of the world using the American operating system. And I think it's very clever, because once you've got into that one system, you know how hard it is to change from Apple to Microsoft. And so we don't want them. We don't want China taking advantage of an opening. And so we're going to start selling some chips to China, not the top tier chips, but pretty close, which will give them no incentive to develop their own. And if we execute on the strategy effectively, I think we've got an AI system which will be the world system.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the use of it in government now and in every aspect, like 80% of the lawyers out there are dead men walking, and they don't even know it, Bill. I mean, I had a friend, she goes to a lawyer, like I happen to have been a lawyer, retired now, but she wanted to just do a couple of amendments to her will, her trust, and put her deed into her condo into the trust. And they wanted $4,500 to do it. I say, well, hey, let me take a look. In 20 minutes, I had a full, complete set of documents for her, better than I would have done myself, because normally I would have had some typos in there that I had to fix. And she went to the court, had them notarized, witnessed, filed, no problem. So many of these things, it's really going to revolutionize.
I'm newer to this. I've only been sort of a power user for the last 6 months or so, but I'd be interested to tell people how that works. Because you just take a PDF or a file or whatever, and you just copy and paste it into the app, and then you say, give me a summary, or give me this particular document, or tell me if there are any flaws in the legal reasoning, or whether there's any exposure we have to some risk.
Exactly.
It spits all that right back at you.
Yeah, you always have to check it. You can't take anything that says verbatim, but it really
go ahead.
It's really a force multiplier, I would call it. I'm about 10 times more efficient than I've ever been in my life. And I'll tell you a little secret. If you take a picture of a business card and you tell it, you put it into Chat GPT, or not all of them do it, Gemini, and tell it to create a V card for your contact file in your phone, it'll do it.
You're done. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
My story about fact checking it is that last year I gave a speech at CPAC, and the speech was on DEI and how pernicious DEI was to organizations who were forced to hire an identity rather than merit. And I wanted to make the case that that the DEI was hurting the performance of companies. And so I can't remember which one. It may be ChatGPT, it may have been Claude. Anyway, I said, well, tell me about this landscape, and can you give me the relationship between DEI and organization performance? And it came back with this great report, but it had this paragraph in there, and they said, well, there's a study that Harvard put out, almighty Harvard, that said that companies that were not using DEI for hiring had 40% higher returns than companies that did. And I thought, this is it. This is Peter. All I need is this. And this is my speech. I've made the argument. And then, so, you got to follow up with these things. I typed in, I said, well, this Harvard study I'd never heard about. Can you tell me some more about it? And it came back and it said, I apologize. There is no Harvard study.
Well, there should have been.
There should have been, but so had I just taken it at face value, I would have been up giving a speech in front of on TV. It's a couple million people and just have something completely dead wrong. I believe, but I so believe that's probably true. And what AI does sometimes is it wants to please you, and so it'll come back with answers that it thinks you like. And in this case, they went a little overboard.
A little bit. But yeah, it is. You have to tell it, put on your non-confirmation bias hat.
Yeah.
I want the neutral, absolute truth because it is programmed to please. And if it's something important, you got to prompt it and tell it, cut the BS, give me the hardcore truth. I can take it. And that's the key.
That's the thing about the Trump has built, the guys who wrote this 24-page plan have it written in there, a couple pages on how it's supposed to rid itself of the woke bias that it's had and DEI and all the liberal leanings that these most of the people that train these models are have purple hair and nose rings, so they're they've got a point of view that's different from mine. And they'll come back with an answer. And it just happened to me this morning. I was researching on something, and it said it was just unbelievable. Oh, it was actually this action plan. It was unbelievably critical of what it was. And I typed back and I said, "Look, I'm not a Marxist. I'm not I'm not on the left. Why don't you give me an analysis, an objective analysis that is skeptical of DEI and skeptical of climate?" And you know what? It did. I mean, it came right back with something that was very balanced, I thought, and had a lot of good facts in it. And it seemed to rid itself from its initial liberal bias. So I think for people to say we can't use this because it's all been coded by or trained by people who don't agree with, that's not true. You can interact with it in a way and shape it to what you want it to be.
Let me tell you a little secret. The more you use it, the more it writes things in your voice. Yeah. So it overcomes the inherent biases that have been programmed into it. And you can always say, pretend you are Socrates or Aristotle. How would you look at this thing? So you can always give it a hypothetical.
I asked mine last week to pretend I was Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
I got some great stuff back.
I'll bet it actually can write humor now.
Yeah.
It's not quite to the human level, but it's getting there. And all right, so we got some things to look
We're
forward
wandering
to.
off topic, but it's all interesting.
Yeah. So AI though, but that is the future, and it's amazing how fast the government has, how it's gripped the government, even with the unions, the bureaucracies, the bureaucrats fighting it tooth and nail. They've been pretty much helpless.
Well, one of the fights that lays ahead is between the federal government and the state governments. And the last was the one big beautiful bill had a piece in there that said that it banned states from regulating artificial intelligence.
Right.
Lots of pushback on that. I think it was like a 99-0 vote to get rid of that piece of it because states didn't want to cede their power to the federal government. And I understand you got to understand that thinking, because most people who think about this AI and all the related software, they're thinking in terms of liberal bias, and they're also thinking in terms of the sex education and all the different things, and TikTok and all the egregious stuff that kids can see from that. And so states wanted to retain their right to keep technology providers from offering up really bad stuff. And I totally agree with that, but it's going to be stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of negotiations between the feds and the states in the years ahead.
By the way, I was working with the AI. It was kind of my idea, but I ran it through the AI, how to solve the problem of these sanctuary cities because they're actively resisting. They won't give ICE access to the jails, which is there's 200,000 felons, foreign felons, sitting in our county and city municipal jails. And what we came up with was use the government's power of eminent domain and simply condemn a portion of the jail or the prison for their use and access to their prisoner tracking system. They have to do it. The laws, it's inviolate. Fifth Amendment. All the government has to do is just pay them some money, whatever the just compensation is, and that's how you get past them all. And they can't even win in a lawsuit. The eminent domain is so ingrained, and it's just not used generally against other governmental entities, but there is no limitation on it being used for that.
Well, I hope you've got the Justice Department on speed dial, because that would be, a tool like that out of the box could be really interesting. They wouldn't know what hit them.
I sent ICE whoever, they're public, they won't listen, but maybe it'll get to somebody. I figure I'll publish an article on it shortly, because basically there's 30, 40 people stealing from my articles that I know about. So maybe the word will get out then. But that's the way to do it. You don't have to go to court. There's not even a notice requirement under eminent domain. They can literally walk in there with their writ of seizure and start working today. Literally.
Well, the thing about eminent domain, that may be something that has to happen or might happen with these data centers. The Chinese are building data centers, or just dozens a week, it seems like. I exaggerate, but not by much. And Northern Virginia, where I live, we've got more. We're the data center capital of the United States, and I think they kind of sprung up and with that overnight without people noticing. But I think there's going to be a lot of pushback on rapid escalating the number of data centers we've got, and it may be eminent domain is one of the ways that happens. I mean, I'm ambivalent because we need the technology, but on the other hand, I like the natural beauty that they're not very good looking. They had to do a little marketing and make them look a little better so they'd be more inviting.
Yeah, well, they kind of want to just blend in. They're hard sites. They've got military level security in these places, and they're trying not to stand out, but I know what you're saying. And, I think that the policies will evolve. The main limitation here now is the electrical grid. Yeah. They'll have to start building their own generators at this rate. And maybe, build them on Indian reservations where none of the laws and regulations apply from the U.S. They could be building power plants there. And it's sovereign tribal land, right?
Well, we're never going to get the Redskins renamed if we put a nuclear power plant on their reservation. That's just going to be another grievance. I'm not so sure.
Well, they've got casinos now. They basically got all the money back, and now let them make some money off of nuclear power, right?
Well, it's it's safer. It was always safe, but now it's really safe, and it's
now
something we've got to look at. And
for sure,
the tech companies are building. They're contracting for their own mini reactors now to go with each data center or cluster.
Yeah, they have to. It's because, like you say, they're using the same energy consumption as a small city. Well, appreciate your coming on, Bill. Make sure you check out Bill at the BillWaltonShow.com. The link's in the show notes to this interview on FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. Always appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Great. Thanks for having me.